Okay, cool. We are back with the third video in this series about cloud code, and we're going to talk about skills. We're going to talk about skills in the context of like general skills, and then we're going to talk about some kind of accounting specific skills, specifically on databases. So basically what skills are, let me kind of show, if I go into the skills folder, you can have different skills, and they're basically kind of their own subfolders. They don't have to be subfolders. They can just be like files in this directory. I'm actually going to share the documentation here on agent skills and kind of just show like quick level, like kind of how it works. So you have like again, these are just text files. In the text file, they want you to have like a header section between 3 tick marks, having a name and a description. So that way the AI agent knows what the skill is and then when you would use it. So, and then from there you can kind of give it the actual instructions, right? So like, use this in this case to extract text from PDFs, blah, blah, blah. And then here, and this is what I wanted to kind of show in a bit more on like the documentation side, is you can have your own subdirectory skill, and then it has a skill.md. These are the main instructions. If it's helpful, there's a forms.md. I haven't used this yet. I'm curious if I can find a use case for it. I'm sure there is one. I just haven't gotten there yet. And then reference.md I do use, or I have used before, and then you can have scripts. So the way that cloud code works is it kind of, tries to understand what you're looking for or what you want it to do, and then it kind of just searches the files in the directory that it kind of has permission to be in. If you say, hey, I have a database skill, it's going to kind of, and you'll see it do this when I kind of show it on the screen, but it's going to kind of look, okay, there's a skill that says database. It's going to kind of search the directory and look for, database skill, and it's going to find a match, and then it's going to read the files in that folder, and then that's going to kind of tell it what to do. But it is important to have like some of the basic stuff. Like it needs to be a skill.md file. It can't be skills.md. It needs to have this, what they call front matter, this kind of section between the tick marks. So there is some basic structure that you need to know, but in general, it's again a lot less coding than the tool calling agent videos I showed in my last videos. So I did enjoy those a lot though, but I get that Cloud Code I think is a better, more approachable version of tool calling agents. So let's talk about skills here. So again, I have my skills on the right screen here. Let me see if I can make it a little bit more. That's not much better to look at, but I have a DB query skill, I have a journal entry skill, I have a nano banana image skill, which is the first one I'm going to show, then I have a reconciliation skill. So let's talk about nano banana. So nano banana is the image API, or the image generation model that Google puts out there. And my skill lets you connect to or make an API request to make an image through that model. And so it's a couple ways you can do this. So you can say, hey, make me an image of a Australian cattle dog running in the outback, very happy with Nano Banana Pro. I had to specify the happy part in there. So what it's going to do is it's going to try to understand my intent. It's going to say, okay, skill. I have a skill for Nano Banana image, and it's going to. You can see it's going to kind of run that script. That's going to run the generate that API request, and what it's going to do is it's going to output that image into a directory I have here called context output images. I want to say. So you can see I already have a bunch in here. You can see the funny ones I've probably done, and Australian cattle dog is not my first. It's not my first one. Oh my goodness! I need to. Excuse me. Let me get out of that. Not Vim Explorer. We'll leave this in here so it's a live cut. Even presenters make mistakes. Okay, let's try that again. If I can type. There we go. There we go. That's much better. So here's the bluey dog. I have a cattle dog. She's sitting right there. So there she is. She's actually white and black, but still she's crazy like a cattle dog. So anyways, so you can see that's a skill that I have, right? One of the things that I've been doing with this skill, other than making dog photos, is I have another skill where it summarizes the latest in kind of like news. Like I have like a news feed, like an RSS feed where it goes out and I say, hey, get me the news from this RSS feed the last 12 hours or the last 24 hours. And then I can say, then generate me an image based on the theme of that news feed. So I won't do that full thing here because that might take a minute or two to run. But I do already have some images that I've generated that I'll just kind of pick on here. So let's see if this one is a good one. 1, 2, 3. So this one, yeah. So earlier last week or this week, I can't remember now. Time flies. But there was some news around interest rates, mortgage-backed securities getting purchased that was going to lower rates. But then there was some geopolitical news that made rates go back up. And so there was the article that I had the AI generate. It went to the RSS feed, found those articles, and generates this. And then the second step it does is it says, okay, now based on that theme, I'm going to go make an image. So that's kind of how this image came to be. So pretty cool. And you can get really specific with the prompt. I didn't really get that specific with the cattle dog. You could say, make it kind of Pokemon. My kids love Pokemon. So Pokemon anime style. And we'll let that kind of cook. And then you'll get that image. So that's like skill, right? So Cloud Code doesn't come with that skill, but what's really cool with Cloud Code, because the Opus 4.5 model is so good, you can kind of make the skill with Cloud Code. You kind of just say, hey, I want to use the Nano Banana API to be able to kind of invoke images or kind of make images on the fly. And it'll kind of make the script for you. It'll make the API requests. That way you can make it reusable. Really cool. So I didn't, I know some coding, but I wouldn't say like I would have done that all by myself. Not nearly as fast. I mean, it took probably 5 minutes to do kind of end to end. So really amazing. Cool. And let's just see this last one here, and then we'll switch off this skill, even though I know dogs are always a hit. Let's go ahead and see 225. There we go. And look at that. That's awesome. So that's really cool. My favorite thing I've seen all day. So that's a skill, right? So if I go back to, let me kind of just clear some of the previous chat. So other skills I do have is databases. So databases are really important for accountants. I'm going to get into the skills folder and go into DB query here. So, I have people ask me all the time, what should I be learning to kind of stay, to stay sharp and stay on the cutting edge of, my field in accounting with AI? Like, should I be focusing on prompting? Should I know how to code? And, I can only give the answer that's, you're asking my opinion. And so here it is. I think the most important thing is to know, where the data is saved and how to get that data. Because a classic conundrum that all accountants typically run into is, you have your GL system, you have, your ERP, SAP, NetSuite, whatever you got, QuickBooks, whatever, right? And that's where you tend to operate out of. You tend to, go into the system if you need to run a report, and then you go click around, ding, 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 extract it, put it in Excel, and then do all your manipulation. Like, we've all been there. We've all done that. It's very manual, and it's a habit that we have, but you don't need to get the data that way. And this is kind of more catered towards accountants working in industry than like public accounting. But typically, if you work at a company that's large enough and has a mature enough engineering team, what typically happens is you have a general ledger system, and your engineers, your data engineering team, will set up what they call ETL pipelines, so extract, transform, load. And these ETL pipelines will push the data from the general ledger system up into a data warehouse. And that's usually where people start doing like queries and doing data analysis, is from that data warehouse. And a lot of times accountants get left out of that, getting access to that data warehouse. And a lot of times it's because we don't know SQL. Completely valid, but I think first, people should learn SQL. I do believe that. So again, what should you learn? I think learning SQL is a good use of your time. You don't need to be an expert, but I think you should know what select statements are, what joins are, how to filter for things, maybe some subqueries, and that's probably it. I wouldn't go much further than that. I don't think that's, necessary. But I do think it's really important to understand like where the data is, where it lives, and how you can get access to it. So, if you know SQL, then you know that, your agent can make an API request to that data warehouse. Typically, the data warehouses these days will have, a way that you can pull data from it, kind of through code or through like an API request. So with an API request, what's going to happen is your AI agent is going to make a command called curl, typically, like curl. And in that request, it's going to have like an authentication token that you have, and then it's going to have the actual SQL query. And so it'll make that request, and then when the data warehouse gets that, assuming your authentication all checks out, it will return back the response, which is just the data that you queried, right? So super important to understand that, and that way you can get the agent the data instead of having to go into the system, download it into Excel, and then like try and give the Excel file to the agent, which always kind of is a bit never really quite works like it should. We can now give the agent give the data to the AI agent directly with that kind of model. So understanding the data is super important and how to get the data. And I think being able to access the database via a skill kind of opens up a lot of doors for AI agent accounting. So last thing I'm going to do with this video is I'm going to kind of show you the kind of like schema of what a typical data warehouse looks like for accounting data. It's not going to be the same for every single place you work, but like it'll kind of give you a general sense. So before I do that, let me go back into the images because I think I actually have an image that is relevant to this. Let me go into here, images, and let me see. I think it is, I think it's this one. Sorry, bear with me. It's this guy here, 2026-01. Oops. I should probably name these better, but it's fine. 132. Okay. Yeah. Okay, cool. So, and then while I'm doing that, I'm going to say, can you help me show the schema of the tables in @db query? Cool. So we're going to have Claude do that, and then we're also going to kind of show it here while that's cooking. This is a nano banana image, right? So like don't take it, like don't try and follow along perfectly, but just to kind of give an idea of how the data typically looks in data warehouse for accounting data is your transactions will be represented as typically two tables. So you'll have a journal entry table, then you have a journal entry lines table, and there will be a common ID that will connect those two tables, like a primary key or whatever. And so whenever you want to make a query for like a set of transaction data, you're going to need to join those two tables, and then you can kind of select the columns that you want. That's pretty important because I think if you understand, okay, what's a trial balance? Well, it's the sum of, for each account, it's the sum of all the debits and credits, being grouped by GL up to a certain date, right? So if I started my business on January 1st, 2025, and I want to do a trial balance as of 12/31/2025, trial balance is basically the sum of all the debits and credits that are posted in the general ledger system for each GL account, and then it just sums them up, right? And so let's go back to look what Claude looks like here. So this is this is actual like an actual database I have that I'm going to show in the next video. But you can see here journal entries is a table, and then journal entry lines is another table, and they're kind of joined together by journal entry ID, I think. And so, journal entry data is going to have like the top level journal entry information, like a JE header, the date it was posted, who posted it, when it was posted, all that kind of stuff, right? And then underneath that, but still part of the JE, is the journal entry lines. And so there will always be at least two journal entry lines because there needs to be a debit and a credit, right? And on that journal entry line, it'll have the GL account that's being hit on that line, the cost center if it's an expense, maybe like a line memo that says what it is. So there's lots of different kind of fields that could be part of the JE lines table. So that's typically how it works. And what we're going to do is in the next video, we're going to show how we can build out, or we're going to show a database query skill that I built that's going to let you kind of talk to the data with Claude Code, which I think, again, opens up a lot of doors for like reconciliations and journal entries. So we're going to talk about that in the next video, but wanted to kind of talk about, again, where should you spend time? What's a good return on investment for you if you're an accountant trying to get more AI equipped? Understanding data and understanding SQL queries and databases is really high up there on the list, because once we can give Cloud Code the skill, we can say, hey, go get me this data, and it'll go get it. And but you still need to kind of have a foundational understanding in order to feel comfortable with that, probably. So cool, awesome. Well, we'll save that for the next video. And yeah, if you have any questions or comments, let me know. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.